What that's all about is that in judo, before you begin and at the end, you bow to show respect. So we are showing respect today to you. What they are doing now is Zempo Kaiten, that is falling ways. Ukeme, they are practicing their falls and warming up. One thing that distinguishes a judo player from other people is that when we fall, we get back up. In judo, you practice many ways of falling. You practice a rolling fall, you practice back falls, side falls. Today we're only showing the rolling fall, so you'll get a flavor for it, but because of time limitations, obviously we can't do it all. Now, in judo, as a sport, you have to have a way of scoring, and one of the ways that in judo you score is one of the types of techniques that you probably are familiar with. These are projection techniques is what they are. Those are judo throws, where someone comes up and attempts to throw their opponent. We're going to show you the 5 different types. The first type are hand techniques. These are techniques where someone is thrown through the air, and in many of the hand techniques, the pivot point is really a point in air. It's done a lot with the hands, not with the other parts of the body. The next type of throws are hip techniques. These are throws where the pivot point is the person's hip, your hip, as the thrower. So all of these throws that they're doing now are using the hip, taking the person, usually they don't really want to be there, but you take them there anyway, and they pivot over your hip and are projected or propelled to the mat. The next is leg techniques. These are techniques where you use your leg and it either reaps their body, their supporting leg, or other parts of their anatomy out of the way so that they fall, and you control them as they fall so that they fall where and how you want them. You may have seen that in the schoolyard, although probably not quite that way. The other 2 groups are sacrifices to the back and to the side. That's one you may have seen in Star Trek, those of you who've seen the Star Trek movies. Captain Kirk loved that. Why are these called sacrifices? They are sacrifices because you give up your standing position in order to throw the other person. So you are sacrificing being standing. That's what you're giving up in order to bring them down. And these techniques really have been likened to taking a stone, which is your body, tying it around the person's neck and throwing that stone off the edge of a cliff, so that they go down off that cliff being carried along by that stone. Now in judo, you can win other ways than just throwing people. There's also a grappling component to it, which is like super wrestling. We're going to demonstrate throws into hold downs or immobilizations, so that the person is thrown and then immediately the person doing the throw goes into a hold down, sort of like a pin, but it's actually a super pin. You don't worry about their shoulders touching the mat for a count of 3.
Yes. Okay, you're going to take them all and use some background.
Another thing you can do in judo is you can lock the elbow joint and put them into a submission like that, so that there is a throw into and then an arm lock, to get the other person to surrender. An arm lock is sort of a super hold because then it's just on the elbow joint. If they don't surrender, their arm gets broken. And in fact, in a tournament, the referees will not surrender for the player. The player has to surrender. You may have noticed the slapping on the other person. Those are taps to say, I surrender. That's how you surrender. If you feel that you need to surrender and they put an arm lock on, you tap them twice and they know that to let go, that you have just given up the match. You can also do chokes in judo. So you could throw into a choke, a strangulation. This can cut off either or, can cut off both. The blood supply to the brain by cutting off the blood flow through the carotid arteries, or it can cut off the wind through the windpipe. And many chokes actually cut off both. And what he just did is there was an attack, he countered the attack, and then moved in after the throw for a choke. Judo can also be used for self-defense, obviously. And we do practice in kata form self-defense techniques. For example, against strikes, such as the hammer fist that you just saw, or a straight punch. Someone were to grab from behind. These are practiced largely in a kata form, which is a stylized routine like you see in karate. The reason is these techniques are very dangerous, and obviously if they're put on wrong or put on very forcefully, then severe damage can occur, like a broken arm, or the person that's taking the force of that impact can be severely injured. Ow, that must have hurt. Now, a lot of people wonder, they look and they say, but they're falling onto an area that's padded. What if it wasn't padded? Actually, the falls you learn do work even on concrete. Obviously, if it's padded, there's a lot less likelihood of injury. And now, to close, what we're going to show you is in judo, one of the differences is a thing called randori. This is sparring. This is a particular type of randori called stukeku randori, which is a throw for throw, so that you can practice your technique on the opponent, and then they can practice the technique on you.
Nope. That is the case, right?
Judo is a sport not just for adults. In fact, there's a lot of kids in this city that do it. At the PAL class, the Police Athletic League class, I believe right now it's about 40 kids doing this. And it is competitive. There are competitions for it. Kids like that, they can actually move up in rank and also get medals and trophies for winning in tournaments. Gavin, who is the boy who's throwing now, actually is a national competitor. He's been competing in the national level for New Mexico.
That'll be one of them, right?
And to close, we do the same thing as we began. We bow.